amazing experiences so that we can all really learn from each other. So thank you again. And I wanted to start with some music. Actually, I wanted to experiment with some music by a friend of mine who is, in my eyes, somebody that really holds the space of being able to enter that space of self-respect and to create with that space in the way they live and the way they create out of life experience. And this particular song is called Wall, and it's basically a story. And I want you to close your eyes during this experience. I want you to close your eyes and really take in the lyrics, because we'll go into discussion about that and explore how it's related to this. Because in fact, this is a holding the space for where we might want to go in terms of the goal of this workshop. So I'm just going to play it now. So everybody, if you would just close your eyes and take in this piece, really pay attention, relax yourself and pay attention to the lyrics and see how they create in your mind and your heart.
People walking down the street, acting all afraid. Past and future one the same, it's already made. You can feel it when you're feeling something that is good. So can others, they can feel it, so can dirt and wood. Sometimes when I'm all alone, I want to stay inside. Then when I go outside, I'm reminded I can't hide. The streets are calling out to me to have thoughts that are good. Trees respond, hearts open, signaling we should use our power to shower ourselves with thoughts of love. Then we can bestow others with power from above. The ongoing war is happening right now. Quadrama war, quadrama war. The ongoing war is happening right now. Quadrama war, quadrama war. Every day she walked to school, Susie did feel bad. When other kids would taunt and tease, it made Susie feel sad. Laughing demons in her ears, Susie walked to school with fears. Step by step it became clear that bullies also feel the fear. She wanted to feel good, so she did what she could, connecting to the source, a shining star, the force. The ongoing war is happening right now. Quadrama war, quadrama war. The ongoing war is happening right now. Quadrama war, quadrama war. My love is true, so I'll walk with you, and I'll not feel blue. I will walk with grace, just a smile on my face. At least I'll try. Now Susie and the bullies, they are in a big rock band. They wear costumes, they sing love songs, they hold each other's hands. Bullies become lovers when we all give us a chance. All give us a chance. You are there and I am there, we all come from one. Move the wise and house to one, it is way more fun. The ongoing war is happening right now. Quadrama
So there's a story in this song that I think is very pertinent for the discussion today because it tells a story of a way of seeing, a way of capturing life. And it's a way that allows flow to occur and allows for new perspectives to be born. And it's only when we have the right perspective, the right understanding of ourselves and others, that we are able to allow new opportunity to come forth, as the bully and the bullied, right? Both in opposite directions, what seems to be in opposition can then come into a unity of friendship and of cooperation. So to learn to process life and the moments through life, whether difficult obstacles, challenges, we, with the right perspective, with the right understanding, we can actually create coming from the space of benefit. And so this entire narrative that the song speaks of is about transformation, transformation in thought, transformation in heart, and transformation in action, and allows for us to also look at life from the perspective of it's just a play, it's a drama that's occurring in front of us and to us. And it gives us this distance where we can actually create with it from the perspective of bringing newness to it so that it's not just in a state of darkness, we can bring light into it. The same situation can then be brought into light. And it's only through our ability to work with our specific tools that we are naturally given, right? So we're going to be exploring what those natural tools are, what it means to be in self-respect, because you can create from difficulty in this way that creates opportunity and benefit only when you sit in that space of self-respect. And we'll explore what that might mean to you. And all of it is born out of self-love. So that space, that the seed of self-respect actually lies in love. And at a certain point in our life, we get to the point where we see no other way out except to look for something different, something new, something outside of what we know. And so this is an exploration about learning how to break out of what's comfortable, breaking out of what we are very familiar with and those things that are no longer working for one reason or another. So that's sort of one of the reasons why this particular piece is engaging to me in terms of my imagination, and also bringing together a aspect of can we as human beings create that goal to make life a play, to make it joyful. Although we are going through these moments of difficulty, of challenge, can we create that in space inside of ourselves to be able to learn, take new perspectives? So that's my perspective in terms of this song. Would anybody else like to share anything that may have really touched them, or how they interpreted the lyrics? Anyone? And again, the thing that makes this experience rich and full and also enriches the learning is everybody's experience. So please feel free to and be courageous enough to share. Anyone? So
Hi.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to make a comment about the song. I was trying very hard to listen to it. There was just some background noise. Something was just muffling. So I was trying to follow along the storyline. So I have to say I got maybe 50-60% of it. So would it be possible maybe you just review the words with us so then we can maybe be more engaged into what the message
Make
was?
sure I'm in mute and no camera. So I'm
Okay, so why don't we do this instead? Because I want to move forward with the discussion, and at the same time move forward with the space that I have. So why don't we do this? You said you got 60%. You said.
I mean, I can hardly. I would say most of it, but it'd just be good to know that the understanding is like accurate.
Yeah.
My understanding is correct.
So
yeah, I mean, I understood the bullying and all that stuff. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why don't we speak of the parts that you did get? Yeah. So what did you actually, what were you able to actually get?
I mean, the message seemed to be that of a person who is struggling to find some kind of a peace. And once he finds it inside and he loses it outside, and then it just moved to the story of bullying, which kind of resonated with me. So I kind of got lost in that. Didn't really get to the end of it. So the very beginning of it was very meaningful, that you can get peace inside, but you do have to go outside and then face the world.
Yeah. Why don't I do this? I'm gonna just, if everybody's okay with this, is everybody okay with me playing the first part of it? Just to clarify it, did anybody else have the same issue?
I also had problems hearing it.
Okay, so why don't we do that then? We'll play the first half, if that's okay with everybody, so that you can really get a sense of the lyrics, because it is important for us to also, this actually brings up a sense of courage. To speak up is courageous, but also it's a form of self-respect. So when something is not working for you, okay, this is self-respect in the work. So when you are not clear about something, it's very important to ask the question. So always have the courage to ask and to make a request as well, because you never know, you may get what you want, right? So that's the point of self-respect.
People walking down the street, acting all afraid. Past and future one the same, it's already made. You can feel it when you're feeling something that is good. So can others, they can feel it, so can dirt and wood. Sometimes when I'm all alone, I want to stay inside. Then when I go outside, I'm reminded I can't hide. The streets are calling out to me to have thoughts that are good. Trees respond, hearts open, signaling we should use our power to shower ourselves with thoughts of love. Then we can bestow others with power from above. The ongoing war is happening right now. War, drama, war, drama, war. The ongoing war is happening right.
Was that enough for you to capture the beginning?
What was he saying during the chorus? I've been told that music gets muffled through Zoom, so I believe
Okay.
that might be the cause of
Yeah. So that
our
might
difficulty hearing everything. It's not fully enunciated.
The ongoing wah is happening right now is what I got, but I see Valerie Geffner commented, and I just wanted to ask Valerie, what is her definition of wah? Is that energy? Is that spirit? Because I hear the ongoing wah is happening right now, but how does she define wah?
Hey. Anyway, so I just wrote in the comments that on the Valerie Geffner YouTube channel, there's actually a lyric video for the song. So if anyone had difficulty, they could look that up, but wow, when I was a student of Raj Yoga, they would use that word, and to me it meant almost the simplicity of the word wow. So it's kind of like a way of being like, wow, drama, wow, like the ongoing wow. So to me it means wow, but I think it has other meanings as well.
Yeah, the other meaning in terms of wa is when you look at when you're faced with an obstacle or a question, instead of going into the question or into the just obstacle, what you say is wa, in order to bring you out of the obstacle, bring you out of the question, and bring you into a position of new perspective based on knowledge, understanding of spiritual concept. So it's a way of checking yourself. It's also a way of redirecting yourself. So it becomes part of a technique that is being used in order to redirect your thinking. So wa is a way of expressing, yes, it becomes a celebration because you are giving yourself the opportunity to redirect, reposition yourself according to the event, and also to detach yourself from what's going on in front of you. I hope that answers the question. Does that make sense?
Beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you.
So this particular song is to me is very instrumental because first of all I know the life of the artist, and I also know sort of the kind of internal work that has to be done in order to actually put things in these kinds of perspectives. And so I challenge all of us to actually take that as an example of possibility and to look at it from the perspective, I can do that too. I can have fun in life. I can bring new possibilities by just positioning myself in the right spot in relationship to what's going on. And that right spot is not an external spot. It's actually a very internal spot. And we're going to go into what that means. Does anybody have any more comments or would like to add to the experience? So we'll go on to this is just again, self-respect is going into self-awareness. You can't have self-respect without being self-aware. And sometimes we don't really quite comprehend. We've been taught so many different things about these different qualities that we are searching to become or to experience, but sometimes very little is being given to us either through school or through our tradition, or through just generally in life experience. So self-awareness, what does self-awareness mean to you? Anyone? Self-aware, to be self-aware, what does that mean?
Self-aware is to know the self at all times, being clear, having clarity of why you feel the way you feel, and it's beyond self-analysis that I acquire not easy. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
can you just clarify the last part of what you said?
Oh, that I think it's not easy to be self-aware, and yet it's all we need to do because it's so simple. This paragraph of the song, there's they're always going to be the ones that wants to be heard and the ones to want to heard, and it has to be a balance created, and that's through karma, and I get it totally. So that's why I see effects parts of what it is to have self-awareness, but you have to go deep into the root of why you don't want to see that reflection on the mirror, because it takes courage. Yes, self-aware.
Yeah. For those who are raising your hand, once the person who's speaking is finished, please just unmute your mic and speak your question, and then just unmute when you're complete. Okay, so please feel free to chime in. Thank you.
Is it that you're becoming aware at every moment to moment of your thoughts? and words and deeds.
Okay, yeah, and it, you know, you go, there's different levels of awareness, right? The deeper you go into it, the more truth you'll be able to discover or uncover. So there's different spaces of self-awareness. I'm aware of my body, so therefore I'm going to be paying attention and become very aware of my body. Is that deep enough for me to get to the truth of deeper truths in terms of who I really am or how it is that I'm really feeling? So there's different layers of discovery that needs to be, that we need to become playful with in the way you just peel off these different layers. So self-awareness, there's many layers. So at what level do you find yourself in terms of self-awareness from a scale of 1 to 6? But before I go into that, does everybody have pencil and paper? Because we'll be needing that for some of the exercises.
I do.
Everybody does? Okay, good.
Yes.
So would anybody else like to add to their own definition of what self-aware means?
Yes. Self-awareness means you love yourself.
Okay.
Brother, self-awareness for me is the same thing that we are talking about. So, awareness about the self, like who am I in actuality, the consciousness to the moment. So when we are walking or talking or every moments, our attentions goes. So who am I actually? So that gives us clearance, clarity about self-awareness. So yes, then yeah.
Yeah, and that also self-awareness also brings us to the fact that, you know, there's a certain foundation to us, right? So the more we become and we practice self-awareness, we begin to recognize that there's actually underlying everything, all the different situations, that there is a foundation to us. And we begin to discover what that foundation is about and how to utilize that foundation. Because sometimes we keep seeing the same quality show up. And so what we begin to recognize is that the situations may be changing, but who we want to be, right, who we desire to be, seems to be very similar in a lot of situations. And so what we're learning is, first of all, that there's a foundation, how to actually access that foundation of tools, what I would call tools or qualities, right, and abilities. And so you have this thing. So a lot of times when we are going through difficulty, we feel alone. We feel like sometimes we get to a point where, what can I do? You feel helpless. And the reason why we get to these states is because we don't have enough self-awareness of all the tools of who we are, and then also the tools that are internally inside of us that we can actually apply to different situations. So self-awareness helps us to define those tools, to access those tools, because we begin to learn what they are and we begin to experience them as well. So it's not just a matter of putting a word to it, it's actually creating experiences based on a practice. So we are practicing to be self-aware. So it can be applied as a practice of everyday living. I practice being self-aware in my everyday moments so that I become attuned to the way I'm thinking, but not just to the thoughts that I'm creating, but to the quality of thoughts. And then even going deeper, not just at the quality, but the vibration behind those thoughts, right? So depending on how deep you want to journey, that's the kind of work and that's the kind of commitment that you'll be making. So self-aware means that I am paying attention to what's actually happening within me, around me, right? But more importantly, self-aware means that I'm pointing back towards myself. So I'm not going to be distracted by the outside noise. I'm actually going inward. I'm being centered. I'm being centered. I'm concentrating on discerning what's happening inside of me. So self-aware takes me away from the noise and it brings me back to the internal noise and paying attention to that so I can put order to it. So based on that sort of way of processing, where do you fall individually in a scale of 1 to 6? So how self-aware do you feel you are? How self-aware are you? And now I want you to add not only where you are, but why do you feel that you're there? So why am I at 2? Or why am I at 4? Why am I at 6? And maybe you feel that you're at 10 and I should have added that. Also say that if that's a possibility. Remember, there are no limitations in this exercise. So the only limitations are the ones that I impose upon myself. So would anybody like to share where they fall in the scale and then also share why they feel that way? Go ahead. Self-aware.
With the practice, with the knowledge, I can rate different numbers, but with practice that I'm doing every day consciously is not more than 2.
Yeah. Yeah, and remember, just keep this in mind. In healing, in being your own doctor, you need to be absolutely honest with wherever you are because you're perfectly where you are all the time, right? And you need to be honest. We need to practice honesty so that we can actually know where we stand and then move from there, right? If we pretend that we're somewhere else, then what happens? It becomes confusing for us to even understand where we want to, what we need to work towards, right? So honesty is a wonderful thing. So at 2, and anyone else?
Hi, I'll share.
Mm-hmm.
I think right now I may be a 3. I've been striving to understand my motivations and wants and needs better and practicing mindfulness and meditation and been enrolled in Brahma Kumari throughout the year. So I've been very committed to inner self growth, but I'm primarily sharing because I believe 2 years ago, before I started this work, I was probably around a 1. I had a lot of blind spots in my life, and a lot of the challenges I was encountering, some were, I think every challenge is an opportunity for a lesson and a period of growth, but I was having recurring patterns in my life. And that's because I had programs and conditioning and other things running in my mind that I had yet to. So now when I look back on past mistakes or grievances, I have a lot more compassion for myself because I realized I primarily wasn't self-aware. And those opportunities now are giving me the tools to acquire who you are, the more power you have in your life to create, and unfold your potential.
Yeah.
But I'm still around a 3. I'm still, and I think you said it best. It's good to be honest with yourself. And I have a daily practice, and I believe I've slipped a little bit, reminded.
Yeah. Yeah. To move forward, we need to create a space of consistency, right? Because inconsistency is actually where it's the thing that gets us into the space where we don't want to be. So consistency creates stability. And so you see that these qualities then you begin to see how different vines, different branches of the same quality turn into something else. So trust gives faith, strength. And so it begins to grow. So patience, patience allows us to also increase trust, right? So the patience, understanding. So all these different qualities you begin to understand how they weave together, how they can be used to create together. And so by creating a stable, consistent practice in this, it allows us to become better weavers of these qualities at the right time. So we begin to really use them as tools effectively, and our self-awareness begins to deepen. It also goes into newness. So we begin to see new opportunity, we begin to recognize possibility. And self-awareness allows that openness to occur. Would anybody else like to add their thoughts?
I would just love to say it was such a beautiful share for the woman who just spoke before me. Thank you for sharing that. And I just wanted to add, I'm probably also at a 3. And I think my self-awareness process has really included kind of looking at those patterns, right? And why things are repeated, but also finding myself more present. And when decisions are being made or when situations happen or things occur, it's really sitting back and being more aware of what is happening in that present moment. So yeah, I'm still work in progress, but I'd say I'm around a 3. I do have a daily meditative practice that I do, and it's just helping me grow.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, the thing to keep in mind is there's not one person in this entire earth who is not on the same boat as all of us, who is, doing their best to become their best. There's not one individual who's reached perfection. And so keep that in mind. We're all doing our best, and that's perfect, right? As long as you keep trying to move forward and you do not give up on yourself. So that's a beautiful aspect of we're all in the same boat of transformation, of becoming more powerful and learning more about who we are and our purpose. Would anybody else like to share?
I just wanted to say, when you said that not giving up, that's really key, at least for this one, because the process of growing is like one step forward, 2 steps backwards, and it's never 100% progress. So being aware and being okay with that has been the key. Otherwise, it becomes a very challenging thing. And not that it isn't, but being aware that there are slip-offs, and then you can get up and move forward from it. And that's the self-awareness that works for me right now.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Yeah, it's very important for us to keep those little slip-ups to a minimum, for one, and so that it also doesn't become a habit that the slip-ups are okay, but we do it with love, right? We use love in terms of our self-awareness, that we are assuring that we are keeping the right perspective in terms of any little obstacle that we are having with keeping that self-awareness or keeping our progress moving. And when we do have a slip up, we don't focus on the slip up, we focus on correcting it and moving forward, right? And we also make a commitment to not do it again, right? And the strength of the commitment is based on our determination. So all these things, all these qualities begin to, again, weave together and show us how they're intertwined. So determination creates the assurance for stability and consistency, right? Anybody else? So moving on, in terms of, this becomes really interesting because there's an aspect of Raja Yoga, which is quite beautiful. It's about looking into the mirror of your heart. But when you look into a physical mirror, it's really important to understand what's actually occurring. So I want you to just close your eyes for a second. And I want you to just see this mirror in front of you. And I want you to really focus on what it is that you see. But before what you see, I want you to really pay attention to what you're thinking. So when you're looking in that mirror, what are you thinking? What's the first thought that comes into your mind? I want you to now see what's there. Keep your eyes closed and see what's there. What is it that you're seeing? And as you're watching this, whatever it is that you're seeing, how does it make you feel? And without much thought or analysis, what does it make you want to do? So now open your eyes. And look at the picture in front of you. Do you have any similarities, do you think, in terms of your thinking, what it is that you're seeing, feeling, and doing? Anyone?
I see calmness. I see happiness than before, and so calm, so have love, happiness, all of this. Before probably it wasn't there a lot, and right now I see.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Anyone else?
When I close my eye, after seeing these pictures, it came to my mind that after closing my eye, that the one that who I am, it's not the one that when I open my eye. So most of the time, I'm not the one that I am. So that mislead me most of the time. So in more like that in terminologies, maybe sometimes I'm body conscious or sometimes in my work conscious. So that's make the difference and give the it's more painful. So that's may lead me to self-awareness all the time. When I close my eye, the one that I saw myself should be seeing all the times in 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 actions. So that was the route taking me inside to be seeing all the times who I am when I'm doing the actions.
Yeah. Anyone else? Thank you. Anyone else?
I think this in the photo, to me, this young man looks very perplexed by the older man in the mirror. He seems, I see an element of curiosity where he's touching his face. There's a confusion. I don't know, perhaps with identity, but what comes to mind is that a lot of what we see in the world is a projection. And maybe in this photo, this old man has a very youthful spirit and he's coming to terms with his age, or he is in fact a younger man projecting a future reality when he ages. But I think inevitably the quality of our life most stems from the quality of our inner world. And this individual seems to be doing a lot of investigating in front of the mirror in terms of what this means for him.
How about you personally? What happens when you closed your eyes and you looked? What did you see? What did you think when you closed your eyes?
After looking at the photo?
Before or after, when you closed your eyes, what did you see in terms of you looking in the mirror?
Oh, gratitude for my life and for everything that just God is a bestower of gifts. And there's this mirror that can reflect back to me and which my brain produces through this machinery that we as humans are still learning to understand. But there's an element behind that because, we are not our bodies, we're souls. We're spiritual beings having a human existence.
I think in that mirror, the young man is looking themselves at the old man. It's negativity on him. This brings me the negativity he has on himself. So he doesn't see. It's like me probably 5 years ago, I didn't see myself in the mirror, but right now I'm so happy and everything is opposite.
Yeah. One of the things to keep in mind when we look in the mirror is that we actually, or even when we look, right? What it is that we're seeing is basically, it's founded on our thinking. So the thoughts that we're having affect the way we see and what we see. So we have to also, in terms of being self-aware, we need to understand the power of thought, that even before I take a physical action towards looking in that mirror, there's already an image in my mind that will then be projected onto the mirror. So even before the eyes capture what's in the mirror in terms of reflection, I already have an image that I've projected outwards. I have feelings, right? Because of that thought. So what we experience in terms of the outer world is also rooted in the way we think. So our experience becomes connected to my thinking process because that's what allows me either the freedom or the enslavery of me limiting myself. So how I think is very much a projection of what I see and experience in the world. So that's why it's important to really become aware of thoughts and the importance that they play in the way we create reality, the way we create self-image, the way we create relationships, the way we create understanding. So even before I see, there's thought behind it. And there's also behind the thought, there's a vibration. So the vibration of how it is that I'm feeling about myself, how it is that I am understanding myself will be then projected outwardly in terms of the words that I will use, in terms of the feelings that will be expressed, in terms of the actions that I will be creating. But it's all based not on the external, it's actually based on the internal. Does that make sense to everyone? Or do you have a question? So now I want you to pay close attention to this image for all of you who can see it. And I think there's probably some people who cannot see it and who might be working on, I remember some people do not have the ability. So basically it's words within a foggy forest. So just imagine there's a mountain full of trees, but there's deep fog. And there's the words throughout this image: unlimited, harmonious, loving, honest, humble, happy, beautiful, generous, accepting, caring, open, enthusiastic, powerful, forgiving, pure, loving, peaceful, creative, cooperative. Now I'll ask you a question. What do you have in common with every single one of those words? So what do you have in common, or what's the connection with every one of those words? Anyone?
I would say maybe that we all have the capacity to feel or experience or be those things, but that doesn't mean we are all of those things.
Okay, so contemplate this. Okay, so I'll go to the next person. I'll come back to the thought. Go ahead. Next. Anyone else? So how are you connected to all of these words? What's the connection? And also, what do you have in common with all of them? Anyone?
All of these qualities stem from my inner goodness. And usually when I'm operating with good intent or goodwill, I embody these qualities in my daily actions and habits.
Yeah. Anyone else?
All of these qualities are present in each one of us and each one of our souls. And that's these are the qualities that our soul actually embodies.
Yeah. So I, the spiritual being, basically have all of these. These are all within me. There's not one that's missing. And the words also are the active form of that quality. So you are always active with these qualities, are always active within you. The only difference is that you're choosing to either connect with them and activate them by putting them into action, but they're always there. There's not one of those qualities that is not part of your toolbox. I'll call it a toolbox because we'll work on what that means a little bit later. So these are your tools for living. These are your tools for thinking. These are your tools that actually open doorways. These are the tools that create cooperation in terms of relationships. These are the tools that create your environment internally and externally, right? And when you use them correctly at the right time for the right situation, they empower you. So these are really important things to understand, to know that these qualities, each one of them, and a lot more, are actually all within you, right? So what I'm looking at is basically things that I hold, that every single one of us actually holds inside of them. And it's through our understanding of that we can then engage it. So self-awareness brings me to the understanding that I have something inside of me to discover, that there's many things inside of me that I have not been taught to either look or even use properly, right? I've been focused on learning about the external world and not enough about my internal world. And therefore, I don't understand in those moments where I feel like, is there an out? Is there something more? Why do I feel limited? So in these kind of situations where I cannot see beyond what I know and what I've experienced so far, and I'm trying to break out of the box, these tools that are inside of you can actually assist with that. So how do I use them? We'll go into that. Anybody else would like to add anything? So now that so self-awareness becomes really important in understanding what's actually in there and around us, how to put things in perspective when we're outside, right? And that's important because we begin to understand how we can then create by using the different parts, the different pieces of something. We can then put the puzzle together and create with it. So outside of just understanding how they may work and how to best put them together, we become creative. So it becomes a creative process. We look at life as a creative process where we're just putting puzzle pieces together. So in putting these puzzles, we then need to understand what in my internal process actually is keeping me in this position of pain and sorrow. And a lot of times what we do is we think that the external factors are the ones that are keeping us in this pain and this sorrow. And what happens is that as we become deeper and deeper and we begin to peel away the different layers of self-awareness, we begin to understand in that space of discovery that I am the one who has placed myself in this jail. And I also am the one who holds the key to liberate myself. So I want you to contemplate. I want you to think about situations either with yourself or situations in your relationships, either with your family, at work, or with the world, in which you are maybe experiencing whether it's a tiny bit or a lot of this. It's not really important, because as long as you are having traces of pain and sorrow, there's something there for you to look at and clean and clear it out of your system, because otherwise you won't be able to fly. So with that in mind, I want you to contemplate from 1 to 6, where do you fall in terms of threshold? Threshold means, how much pain and sorrow can you take before you feel like I've had enough and I have to do something different? And for different people, it's very different, because for different people, we have different training from school, different training from our culture, right? Sometimes because of our gender, because of our relationship, because of our profession, we feel we've been trained to think that you must sacrifice, right? And in sacrifice, what happens is neither side wins, because everybody then now enters the space of suffering and not being happy. So we have to reconsider what we mean and how we actually enter these spaces, so that we can then be authentic with ourselves, so that we can then climb out this cage into freedom. So for what is your threshold for pain and sorrow? And sometimes we've been trained, and I know this for a fact, in terms of me personally, also in terms of my family, that sometimes we're trained to endure the deepest type of pain and sorrow because we think that's the right thing, because culturally, spiritually, we've been trained to think that that's okay. So without judgment, it's just what it is, right? We don't judge anything, as it's just what it is. This is my condition. So keeping that in mind, what is your threshold for pain and sorrow? Anyone? So just from 1 to 6, where do you fall?
6 years ago, I was in 5, but right now I'm in 1 and 2.
Okay. Yeah. And can I ask what actually is keeping you? What ideas are keeping you there?
Actually, I couldn't deal with a lot of things, and I putting in my side inside, and I thought somehow I'm missing, I'm hurting. A lot of things is inside I keep, but right now I try to solve it and release it.
Right. Yeah. And that's also a lot of cultural things that happen where we're trained to actually keep those things inside of us until it's not possible. They accumulate or they grow.
Actually, the other things I couldn't deal with it. So that one, when somebody in my family was dying,
yeah.
So it was so hard for me. I couldn't forget, so I keep in my side. And I'm so happy right now. I deal as a soul. So your soul, we have to go. We have our destiny, and it's finished. The drama is finished. So I solved a lot of them.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Where do you fall in this threshold of pain and sorrow? I have to say that before coming into knowledge, I probably was a 12 because my mother, she was very good at teaching us that that first of all, that it's best to just do the right thing. And the right thing was to just keep going, no matter how painful it was. And so, and also to just let go of parts of yourself. You had to be dishonest with yourself in order to participate, in a sense, right? Participate in family, and a lot of times that happens, and so we begin to actually become cold-hearted. We begin to close ourselves to ourselves, and all of a sudden we do put ourselves in this little cage. And so it's important for us through self-awareness, through that space of exploration of what is real for me, that space of what is real, what is true for me, not what does my culture speak of, not what does my schooling speak of, not what does my profession speak of, not what does a politician speak of, not what the news speak of, but what do I? So coming to that space of understanding what is real for you and what is authentic to you, which will liberate us from our cages. And we all have to go through that space in the process of self-awareness where we must journey into that painful space of just understanding what is really happening inside of us, right? But it's a beautiful process because through that, we liberate ourselves. We become light because we let go of that dark shadow that's inside of us. Would anybody else like to share?
Maybe a yep.
Arini?
Go ahead. Oh, okay. I was going to say, I think I'm at a 4 right now.
And why do you think you're there?
So kind of like what you were saying, I think, yes, I was a lot higher before, 10, 12, you name it. And I think now, I mean, while there has been that improvement through self-realization or self-awareness, there's still a lot that's been conditioned within. I grew up in this environment where if you expressed yourself too much, that was called being too emotional. and that had a negative connotation. And then I'll take it one step further to say that I've also grew up with a dad who basically we could never have joy about anything, least that jinxed it and something bad would come about. So I think while I've come a long way, you know, I do notice sometimes there are still those bits that when the situation, a similar situation arises, it's a test really, right? Just where that threshold is now and what I'm willing to take. And then I think there is a fear too of, yeah, expressing myself, because when I did, it was more or less that I would shut down.
Yeah. So yeah, we develop a sense of the fear for loss, the loss of our family, the loss of that close one, the loss of people around us, the loss of approval. So there's a lot that the self-awareness of really understanding how much suffering and pain am I willing to take in order to please the people around me, and to, quote, be in this illusion of harmony, right? Because we're creating illusions around us and inside of us in order to be able to keep this facade, this illusion up. So it's important for us to understand what is real and what's an illusion. What illusions are we creating, willing to create in order to be in this space of false authenticity, false.
And then I think moving past worrying about being misunderstood by others and focus on us really understanding ourselves instead.
Yeah. Thank you for the deep sharing. And a lot of times also we keeping in mind that, you know, the connection to a particular way of thinking is really sometimes held simply by fear. And fear, when we begin to play these games with ourselves, we actually are being governed by fear itself. And fear itself then begins to dominate our process of thinking, of feeling, and the way we are living life. So really being aware of how fear, whether fear has infected my life, and paying attention to that, being really clear of why am I willing to, and is it worth it? Is it worth it for me to be in pain and sorrow and to continue this if it doesn't work for me as an individual? And the question becomes, am I worth saving? Am I worth? So it becomes a very internal question for ourselves, where we have to find the love, the inner strength to say, okay, you know, I've lived with this, I've tried it, but it's not working, and I don't want to continue this. And that can go in terms of relationships. It can go into in so many different spheres of our daily lives. So we being honest to what is there and how it's maneuvering and creating within my internal self is very important. Honesty becomes a doorway to liberation. So I have to be honest with myself always. Because the minute I start not being honest with myself in order to please others, then what happens is that I'm going in the wrong direction. I'm going away from myself. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And yeah, so this question of, do you trust your internal signals, right? Do you feel strong enough to go beyond the outside noise? And that seems to be the common, I think that we as human beings, instead of being very different from each other, we're so similar because we're all striving to find the same things. We're all striving for the same type of relationships. We're all striving for prosperity. So there's a lot more similarity than there is differences. And you wouldn't really be able to notice that because at this point in history, I mean, everything you write, you see in the media, you hear about, it's all about how this person is different and this person is right and that person is wrong. It's all about position. It's all about separation. And so it becomes even more difficult for us to be able to discern honestly what is right and what is wrong, what is true and what is false. So the intellect has great sense of confusion. So do you trust your internal signals? So the first question is, how deep is your trust for the self from 1 to 6? How deep is your trust in yourself? And if you are in deep trust of yourself, that means you are listening to your internal signals. But if you're not deep in trust for yourself, it means that you're running away from the signals. And you're just following along with everyone else just because the group says so.
No, I trust myself. Like
Yeah.
5. Yeah.
So where do you
always.
fall? Where do you fall?
Right now I'm in there. I'm from Iran.
From where?
Iran.
No, but which where do you fall in terms of your trust in terms of yourself? 1 to 6.
1 to 6. I think 5. I trust. I don't know. All the time I trust myself and do the things I wanted to do, and everything comes from my attachment to the God. I believe everything that comes to me, if it's wrong or right, it's gonna teach me. So for that reason,
Yeah. And what about your trust for others at the moment?
I trust them, but a little bit, it's not as much as I trust myself. Really.
Yeah.
It depends, who I am with.
Yeah.
It's very important to whom
I
trust, depends.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Anyone else? Where do you fall in terms of trust towards yourself?
I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. Especially a few years ago, I would say my trust for myself, especially a few years ago, was around a 1. I believe I lacked trust and faith in myself for a while, and I was looking outside myself for fulfillment or for tools, seeking answers for things, trying to search for solutions. When ultimately I found that a lot of the solutions, I had to come back to myself and learn to trust myself and build that bridge back to my heart, back home. I think a lot of that stemmed from my childhood and my mother. She was a narcissist. I used to take on a lot of self-blame. I would be blamed for other people's actions or not getting things, not grew up with a perfectionist mentality. So it's also that perfectionist mentality, which can be more black or right or wrong, success versus failure. It's so it's so dual versus non-dual that if I'm putting myself in these boxes where I'm continually, I'm not trusting myself and I'm betraying my own intuition, perhaps when I might be seeking an answer outside myself and someone else, and they by no means know what's best for me, or nor can they predict outcomes in the world. I have to learn to develop that for myself. And I've been doing that over the past few years, and I'm around a 3 now, I believe. And
congratulations.
It's it's wonderful to have a home back, to have a home again back in myself and not be searching out in the world for love and acceptance. That only comes from within. You have to.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very important for us to really build that muscle of trusting the signals internally, and trusting that compass that's actually trying to direct us in the right, space, in the right direction. And so we need to develop that. How to develop it? It takes time, it takes patience, and taking little tiny steps. And one of the most effective ways I know how to develop that sense of trust for the self is through gaining spiritual knowledge that actually strengthens that. So the more I know about myself, the more I know about my tools, the more I know how powerful I am, the more capable I understand myself to be able to be in front and face these things that come up in life. So yeah, self-trust is very important. And then in this particular moment in time, the way that self-trust has been deteriorated by information, by experts, by media, by politicians, by just in general, one has a difficult time discerning right from wrong, true from false. And I think that this is a time where we're really being called to pay close attention to those internal signals, to really do the work necessary to connect to whatever's honestly and truthfully there inside of us, to the point where we're trusting our system. And our system includes this physical body to be able to actually repair itself, to heal itself, right? So there are many ways of creating in this space of self. And how just in terms of how deep is your trust for others in this particular time in your life? Anyone? You're walking down the street and you see somebody. What's your reaction? Are you going to smile at them and say hello, feel totally, happy about it and also clear about it? Or what is really going on there? Anyone? What's happening in my mind? What's happening in my heart? I'm out on the street. Is it easy to smile at someone? Is it easy to trust someone? What's going on?
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Easy to smile, but nobody can see my smile because it's under the mask.
You know what I've noticed actually in terms of that is that.
But your face can show that you are smiling.
Actually, your eyes smile for you. And I know that when I'm actually in that connection of smiling, I know that people catch it. It's really interesting, but I've tested it and it really does work. When I really
it does.
Yeah. So the vibration is beyond the physical smile. The vibration is felt by another being. So let us keep smiling authentically and deeply so that other people can be inspired to smile and also trust. Does anybody have any questions or would like to add anything?
I just wanted to make the comment about self-trust.
Yeah.
I find that the more the trust in oneself grows, so does this trust in others. As the confidence in one's ability, intuition, whatever it's called, grows, there's less of a mistrust in others because you're able to see also same qualities in others. That was just something I've come across. I'm not sure if everybody else has the same experience.
It's a beautiful thought and experience, because it is true. It all starts with you. And if you don't trust yourself, especially in these days, if you don't trust yourself to be able to discern, to be able to choose between right and wrong, true and false, then your trust in other people will be broken down as well to a deep level. So if you can't trust yourself, imagine the kind of trust you're going to be able to give to others. And so we go to this next section. So are you ready? If somebody was going to say, are you ready to have your fortune awakened? And the word fortune, brings up many different ideas in people's minds. Fortune. Oh, I'm about to win the $10 million lottery. But is this the kind of fortune that we're speaking about? Is this a deeper fortune? And also importantly to understand is that sometimes we're not in the space, we're not in the mindset, in the heart set, the physical set, to actually accept fortune. Have you ever had something really beautiful happen to you, but yet your words, your feelings, and your actions towards it are in disbelief, and also almost where you want to get rid of it because it reminds you of how worthy you are? So we must be ready to receive the fortune when it's being offered, and also be ready to actually take it on, to discover it for ourselves. If you're not ready for that to occur, then nothing, even if they gave it to you straight onto your hands, they walked you through it, nothing can be done because you're not going to implement it, use it. There's people who have billions of dollars, but yet they waste it away in things that are useless, right? So no matter how big the fortune is, if you don't have the right mindset, if you don't have the right heart, what happens is you waste it away. You don't use it. So I'm inviting all of you to allow this fortune to awaken inside of you. And it's only through the journey of self-discovery, self-awareness that you can get there. But what is it that I'm trying to discover? What is it that's awaiting in this journey? What's awaiting in this journey is a deeper sense of self-respect. A deeper sense of self-respect, which only comes when you are willing to love yourself. So the root, the seed of self-respect is self-love. It's love, pure love. You no longer want yourself to suffer, to be limited, to be in the cage, and you're willing to use the key to liberate yourself. That's the first step towards self-respect. And you may be able to have signals of self-respect from time to time, but you won't be able to hold it consistently in everyday moments without that pure love that you need to show yourself first. I want to play another song. I want you to just listen to it. And then I will go into this next form. So here very quickly, a song. Can everybody hear it?
Yes.
I'm going through the loneliness. fighting for it more or less. Sometimes it's just all a dance. I'm dancing till it all makes sense. More like a circle than a line. I am the only thing that's mine. More like a circle than a line. I am the only thing that's mine. Dun, 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 da, 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 dun, 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 da, 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 dun, 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 da, 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 dun, dun, dun. I'm with you when I'm on my own. Meeting of the old and new. I'm with you when I'm on my own. What's yours no one can take from you. What's yours no one can take from you. I'm going through the loneliness. I'm fighting for it more or less. Sometimes it's just all a dance. I'm dancing till it all makes sense. Around the corner on a walk, craving silence more than talk. A coconut or two to drink. I choose to rise instead of sing. I'm going through the loneliness. I'm fighting for it more or less. Sometimes it's just all a dance. I'm dancing till it all makes sense. I'm going through the loneliness. I'm fighting for it more or less. Sometimes it's just all a dance. I'm dancing till it all makes sense. More like a circle than a line. I am the only thing that's mine. More like a circle than a line. I am the only thing that's mine. Dun, 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 da, 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 dun, 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 da, 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 dun, 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 da, 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 dun, 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 da, 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 dun, 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 da, 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 dun, 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 da, 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 dun, 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 dun.
What did you hear in this particular song personally? What stood out to you? What did you connect with? Anyone?
I couldn't hear it very well. I don't know if others shared that, unfortunately.
Okay, well, I seem to have an audio issue here, and
Yeah, it's very difficult to follow the lyrics.
Yeah,
okay.
the lyrics were
Yeah.
not clear.
Okay. Oh,
Well, from what I could follow, actually, what taught me or resonated with me is that you don't always know what's going on, or that feeling you don't always know what's going on in this world around you. You just go with the flow, almost going through the motions. And then also that lyric that like nothing belongs to you except yourself. So
yeah,
I mean, that's what I feel like was the multiple nuances of the song.
yeah. That is correct. Yeah, and also the fact that the courage, self-respect gives us the courage to go through that space of loneliness, but to understand its place, right? To put it in perspective, and also, but most importantly, that you're never alone, that you have that spiritual aspect to yourself, and that you are connecting to something greater, and that this is all part of this, this game of life, and that things are not there to stop you, right? And that it's just a flow that you have to create through your own perceiving of it. And self-respect gives you the opportunity to actually keep things in perspective. So self-respect is my tool to keep things in perspective, to allow the flow to occur, and to understand that just everything's just it's going in cycles. You know, this is just but a moment of difficulty, a moment of challenge, but then that's not my entire life, nor will it be my entire life. This is just one moment in time in this cycle of things that are happening to me, right? So we, through self-respect and the use of knowledge, we begin to actually put things, create the stories that are required for us to create right perspective. And self-respect works that way. It opens up a doorway of creativity. It opens up a doorway of mastery of what's inside of us so that we can put things in perspective. So based on that, where do you fall in terms of 1 to 6 in terms of self-respect? Anyone? Self-respect. And it's okay if you guys don't want to participate on this one. Go
I'll
ahead.
share.
Okay.
I'll share. I'm pretty open. I'm lower than I'd like to be on the self-respect spectrum. Although a few years ago, I believe, before I started accumulating more spiritual knowledge, I was around a 1 or 2 because at my core, I did not love myself. And without operating, without, I believe without having a sense of self-love, I withhold love for myself. So then I operate a way in the world where I allow others to withhold love from me as well. That's a choice, and that's something I attract. And it wasn't true. That was a story I was telling myself from my past.
Yeah.
From experiences and conditioning. And now I've had a lot of spiritual growth, and now that's changed. And I respect myself more now, and I understand boundaries, and essentially as well, not to take things personally in the world as well.
Yeah, that's a very important point. It's like when we take things personally and we feel that somebody's attacking us, right, with their words or actions, our self-respect begins to deteriorate because we're actually creating a relationship with whatever they're giving us, and that relationship usually becomes negative. So a sense of detachment is required in these kind of situations so that we remain in our self-respect. We are respectful and accepting of somebody else's thoughts, feelings, and actions, but without allowing them to affect my condition, my stability. It becomes very important. Yeah. Rajit, did you want to say something?
Yes, I see myself, and for the self-respect, 4 out of 6. I have been seeing myself in different situations where it helps me a lot when I detach myself, and I can not also selfishness, but with self-love. Sometimes something happens and say, first I have to take care of myself. Okay, so not take it like personally, or not take it as attacking on me. Now, this is just a one role. So that consciously I have seen but a lot of times that I was able to allow myself not to receive sorrow or pain out of any situations, just because of self-respect and self-love.
Yeah. It's a protection. And I'll just also draw from the original song, the one about the bully and the bullied, and how with self-respect, as self-respect grew, but also before self-respect occurred, the understanding of each other, that both the bullied and the bullier, the one who was the bully and then the bullied, they both had a reason for being the way they were. One, because they weren't strong enough to stand up for themselves, right? And also create collaboration, cooperation, become creative in the way they communicated with the bully. And then the bully had a reason, probably because they weren't feeling good about themselves. So in a way, self-respect allows us to give us the perspective of understanding each other. So through self-respect, I understand myself, but I am also able to see the goodness, the possibility in the other. So instead of just seeing the action that's being done right here, right now, I see the possibility, a pure vision of that individual that's in front of me right now. And through that pure vision, I can then have possibility of creating cooperation, collaboration, and friendship. So in terms of the fortune, you are perfectly occurring. If I told you you are perfectly occurring according to place and time, understanding that sometimes we hold such a narrow perspective, such a tiny little perspective on the universe. Our universe is so tiny in comparison to the broader experience of what's there. Not what's possible, but what's literally there, right? So through self-respect, we begin to broaden, we begin to enlarge our ability to see, to recognize the larger universe, the larger reality. And so they also allows us to put things in perspective in terms of there's nothing, I am missing nothing. Everything that I require for me to move forward is here present in this moment. So I begin to work out of trust. I trust at the moment, whether there's a challenge or there's a joyous moment, they both hold the same thing. They both hold benefit for me. So I begin to reach out into the world towards all of these different experiences that I'm having. I begin to create beautiful meaning that empowers me. So I begin to trust that I'm perfectly occurring according to place and time in every moment, that there's nothing missing, that I don't require more than what is being given to me, what is present in this particular moment. So a sense of trust. And how do I get to that point where I'm actually, one of the things that just through my own practice, my own experience, after 20 some years of being in the practice of self-exploration, the thing that is most beneficial, well, the two things that are most beneficial is knowledge. And then the second is learning to go inward, to connect with the original self. And through just this simple process, what happens is you begin to, what you see here. So what I'm going to do is it's about an 7-minute meditation. So I'm going to encourage you to do the meditation in this format where you are going to just look at the screen. And I want you to contemplate the words around, okay? And I want you to put them in perspective of yourself as you go through. There is a dialogue in this commentary. So there's a dialogue, just follow the dialogue, but at the same time, also place your awareness in these words and how they connect to you, how they open you up, how they create possibility, okay? And I encourage you just sit comfortably. Meditation in this practice is not, I have to sit in a particular pose. I don't have to have incense or particular crystals or bowls or any music, nothing. It's just about shifting my awareness of thinking, my awareness of consciousness. Where's my consciousness? Where's my awareness? Right? So I'm going to shift my awareness from outward into inward. So even if I have my eyes open, so I want you to keep your eyes open during this entire time and just focus focus your mind on this particular screen, focus your mind on what's being said, focus your mind on the words, and remain focused for the remaining of the time. This is a form of practicing discipline. I am disciplining, right? I sit in the seat of my self-respect and I tell my mind what to do. I tell my body what to do. I am the master of this system that's occurring. Okay, so I just want you to just practice this form of meditation, open and refocus your consciousness, your awareness. So here we go.
Experience the pull to go beyond sound. What a beautiful moment it is.
Since you guys have given me the signal that the audio is not so loud, was that volume okay, and did it come out clearly? Can anybody confirm?
Yes, for me.
Yes, it was good.
Okay, good. So then I'll just continue then.
Our habit is to go into sound. God is creating in us the ability to go beyond sound. And from there to come into sound. O mind, speak sweet words. Such a beautiful song. The mind speaks first. And we come into sound through words. Sweetness. It must exist before we come into words. Into sound. A clean and elevated mind. No effort. Only pure and elevated thoughts. Saints and sages wrote the scriptures, sitting in silence, with elevated, high-quality thoughts. Imagine the quality of their minds, rarely coming into words. Their thoughts, clear and deep in writing. It is easy to come into sound, into words. Go into the silent state of being a soul. Light. Beyond the body. Bodiless. Lost in the sweetness of God's love. From there, come into words. When you speak, those listening will also become bodiless. Light. Now is the time. Receive from God the gifts of love, peace, and happiness. The recognition of time. Remember God with love. Remembrance in our thoughts. The sweetness of that remembrance reflects in our words. We are merged in that experience. Those saints and sages did a lot of meditation with the aim to experience deep silence. With one glance, in 1 second, God gave us that experience. Told us, peace is the garland around your neck. With useless thoughts, peace runs away. We take the words, the sound of others deeply into ourselves and let go of our inner peace. Don't allow yourself to come under the influence of your own mind or the mind of others. From just one thought, so many thoughts emerge, creating discontent. Free the self from the effort of trying to forget things of the past. Why remember and then make the effort to forget? Go beyond sound, beyond words, to receive the nourishment of silence. Then there is happiness. No matter what others are like, I have to give happiness. The sun does not discriminate to whom it will shine upon. It will just shine. The tree does not discriminate to whom it will give shade. It just protects. We too should not give up our qualities due to another person. A river flows and merges into the ocean. If the river stops flowing, rubbish accumulates as people throw waste into the river. A clean river flows constantly. Pay attention to the quality of your words. To go beyond sound is very beautiful. Into silence. And sweet words will emerge.
So, so I said before, meditation is medicine for ourselves. It's medicine because it helps us heal and also discard the waste. So it purifies us, it opens us up, it awakens what's inside of us so that we can then utilize it. It familiarizes us with those tools inside. It creates balance. It helps us release the waste. It stabilizes us. So meditation is the way that I come in full alignment of myself. And there are many different forms of meditation. So whatever works for you is what you should be doing. But the main thing is that it needs to be consistent practice so that you can then stabilize in that self-respect and stabilize the moments of your life with consistent outcome, right? So it's no longer going up and down, but it's really a consistent sense of consistency that you're experiencing. So whether obstacles come, or whether joyous moments come, you're in both situations feeling constant in your self-respect, in your own virtues, in your own qualities. It's important to use this tool, to use these experiences to build up strength, to build up the muscle of spiritual understanding, a spiritual experience, to remove the fog that is keeping me from understanding who I fully am. And so as I meditate further, what happens is that you naturally, this is not a phenomena that happens because of the right mantra or anything. If you sit in silence naturally, what happens is you begin to feel yourself, the spiritual being, which is in this physical shell. And one of the things that a lot of meditators, especially when they're beginning, happens is that they begin to feel themselves and they begin to feel the energy expand. And for a lot of them, that's very frightening. So what's happening is that the spiritual energy is expressing beyond the body, because what happens is as you become self-aware, what happens is that you are awakening your spiritual potential. And through doing that, you're awakening different capacities. And one of the capacities that begins to awaken is that you begin to connect to the qualities of the soul. And as we said, before, in the image of the forest and the mountains with the words, the activated virtues or qualities, it's basically all of those qualities are part of ourselves. I hold love. I am love. Right? So one is, how am I relating? So awareness also teaches us that how I relate to something, that will give me a certain type of connection, a certain type of outcome. So if I relate to I have love, then it's a relationship where love is not natural to you. That's why you have it in your hand, as opposed to I am love. I am love speaking. I am love listening. I am love, in action. So it gives you a completely different result. In the same way that if you say if your relationship to your physical body is such where you say I am the body, then the spiritual nature of yourself remains dormant. So in order for you to activate the spiritual energy, okay, and maximize on the spiritual energy and the spiritual tools, you need to go beyond your relationship of I am this body and go into the relationship of your true self, which is I am a spiritual energy, a spiritual being that lives, that inhabits this physical body. And however it is that you have been taught and that feels comfortable for you, I think that you need to explore these ideas in those terms as well. So I'm just speaking the language of souls so that I also possibly expand your capacity to engage with that conversation in your own way. Because spirituality, and I have to emphasize this, spirituality is a very personal space. So each one of us is uniquely created, and each one of us will experience the spiritual awakening in our very unique space, in our very unique way, and also with the path that is right for us. So there is no general formula for this, but there is knowledge which pertains to every single being, every single human being in the experience of being human. And so when you begin to awaken the spiritual energy, as I, the spiritual energy, embody this physical body, what happens is this process of awakening occurs. And many of you may have heard it as the awakening of the Kundalini, the Qi, in terms of the Chinese methodologies, the Qi, the naughty points, right? The chakra system, the Kabbalah, the tree of life. So there's many ways of referring to this. The specific way that I'm referring here is I, the soul, awaken the capacities of myself, and I also fully awaken the capacities of this physical body as my tool. And when these two systems are integrated, it's called the integrated self. And what happens is when I sit in self-respect, I become the master authority of this system. That means that I am in full command of my thinking, my feeling, and my doing. That I am mastering the tools that I have been given in this experience called the human experience, right? And so that's what self-respect allows you to do, is to fully integrate, not have one part of yourself asleep while the other one is moving around. So if you're moving without this, the thing that actually gives you life, it's almost like a zombie without a soul, right? But you want to be awake so that you understand your full capacities, your full abilities, and so therefore you awaken the soul. You awaken the full capacity of the soul. And that happens through you creating a relationship of awareness and internal introspection through either meditation or whatever it is that is right for you as the individual soul that or individual spiritual being that you are. Does anybody have a question regarding this? And so as you sit in that space of self-respect, what happens, the first thing that happens is cleaning up happens. And one of the first things that happens is that I recognize myself for who I am. I recognize myself and I recognize the tools, my capacities, my natural gifts, my natural fortune, right? So I'm taking knowledge, I'm applying it to my self-mastery. And then what happens naturally is that doubt just removes itself. As I go deeper in meditation and I begin to connect to my truth in an authentic way without the illusions or distractions of the outer world, I begin to connect to what is true for me. And therefore doubt disappears. And the desire to be right, because I no longer have to fight for my position, right? So instead of having a desire to be right all the time, no matter what, at what cost, I now have a desire to be in truth, right? In universal truth, in the truth that takes everybody into consideration. So I let go of doubt, I let go of this need to be right. So I get into arguments, I get into fights, I get into, I create terrible relationships because of my need to be right, to be agreed with, to be accepted. And then that fear of loss, right? So fear, I let go of the fear that I am not complete, that I'm not whole. So fear goes away because I understand that I have everything I require for this life and every life until eternity, right? So I begin to connect to my eternal self. I begin to connect to the truth and the power that's there, and that nothing can be taken away from me. Only I can take away my abilities by limiting my capacities. So I'm the one who limits myself by the way I look and perceive things. So fear removes itself. So as I begin to meditate and I sit in that space of self-respect, I also let go of this thing called I am a victim. And I understand that everything that has and is happening to me, as we said before, I am happening perfectly according to space and time. And I look at that and I begin to change my perspective and I don't blame others. So all that goes away. Guilt, anger, resentment. So these things just get washed away. They washed away because I'm connecting to myself. I'm connecting to my experience in a from spiritual understanding that allows me to put and create the right story behind my experience. And one very important thing, one of the most common thing that keeps people in this cage is the need to fulfill other people's expectations. My parents told me, or I need to please my parents, or I need to please, or I need to follow the cultural, nuances, or I need to follow what the politicians say, or I need to follow as a national, or I need to follow because of my gender, or I need to do this. So I need to fulfill, I lose the need to fulfill and make other people happy. I no longer am willing to accept misery and sorrow and pain simply because I'm trying to please someone else. I understand that by actually living in my truth, in my own joy, I will then be able to give joy to everybody around me, and everybody around me will be influenced in a beautiful, positive way. So I begin to trust. So in that process, there's this great release that occurs. So as I practice and go deeper into meditation, as I go deeper into the exploration of knowledge, I begin to strengthen my capacity to see reality, to see the truth. Not from the space of I, the ego, right? But from the space of I, the spiritual being, who is looking at from the perspective of the broadest perspective of universal truth. And like everything else, life is the process, but also the ability to grow self-respect is a process. And we need to understand what the process is so that we can effectively nurture that growth. So as I said before, self-respect must emerge from self-love, from that love of I don't want to suffer anymore, and I will love myself enough to remove the waste, to remove the things that keep me in the limited space. So I choose. I begin to exercise the idea that I have the power to choose my own condition, my own ability to think individually, my own ability to feel whatever it is that I feel and to be okay with that, and to be able to do the actions and create based on that truth that I am, because that's why I'm here, to live out my truth, right? Not from a space of ego, but from a space of spiritual understanding of myself, my nature, my spiritual nature. So love becomes the seed, and pure intention becomes part of the root. My intention in going into this must be pure. It must not be driven by ego, right? Because it becomes something else. So it has to have a pure spiritual intention. And knowledge helps me, guides me, creates stability in that love. And the practice, the yoga, the introspection, however it is that you decide is the right path for you, that meditation, that walking meditation, that, whether it's playing music or dancing or whatever it is, that state where you become fully aware of yourself and your condition and your abilities, that's where you want to be. And so through this growth and this nourishment, through these practices, right, pure intention, knowledge, and that meditation, love begins to cause other things to blossom, to grow. So the stem of commitment begins to grow. The stem of determination gets strengthened. It begins to grow directly out and become prominent in your own space of self. Your body language changes. So you become more open to possibilities, open to the things that you do not yet know, because there's so much. So you break out the box of I know, and you go into the space. It's okay for me to not know everything at the moment because I'm willing and able to discover it as I go along. So patience gets developed. And it's through the discipline of being stable in a practice that I begin to experiment. I get joy out of experimentation. I get joy about, in terms of facing the obstacle. I now look forward towards obstacles because I know that I have the tools and that I have everything that I require in order to face what's in front of me. That's why I'm here. Otherwise, I would be in a completely different situation. But it's through development of that that I also develop and strengthen my nature of responsibility. And because I am honest with myself, I'm living in whatever is real, whatever is true, whatever is right for me as a spiritual being. And so as this love gets nurtured through this practice, through this discipline, it begins to blossom and all of your virtues begin to grow, begin to be activated. You begin to realize that, oh, this is the right type of situation where I need this type of virtue. This is the right time to apply purity. This is the right time to apply trust. This is the right time to apply patience. And as that blossoms, then your full power in self-respect begins to flower. And self-respect begins to just show its face in the most magical ways. And another magical thing happens, another miracle happens. That as I grow in my self-respect and my virtues begin to be activated and used as tools for my everyday moments, my spiritual powers and my power to discern gets so strong that I'm able to decide very quickly right, wrong. Not right, wrong because of my ego, but because of spiritual knowledge, universal spiritual knowledge that is based on universal truth. And that you will decide what that means to you. So I come from the space of I love myself with purity. I love myself enough to sustain myself, to create a practice and a world around me that will nurture my growth, my spiritual growth. That will, and at the same time, what happens is that everything around you begins to change. Your relationships begin to change. So as I change, the world changes. So I'm going to just very quickly focus on one part of the soul. As some of you may know, the soul has an ecosystem or an anatomy, and the anatomy looks like this, but I am going to just focus for the purpose of this conversation, I'm going to just focus on what I call the thought factory of the soul, which is the conscious mind. So most people think that the brain is actually creating thoughts, but here's a new possibility for you to contemplate and perhaps explore a little bit more. And that is that the soul is the creator of the thought through this aspect of the soul, through this part of the soul that is called the conscious mind. So the conscious mind creates thoughts. And then we also need to understand that this factory, not only does it create thoughts, but it affects, if I can master this process in terms of my thinking, I am mastering the seed of a lot of my aspects of my life. So it's very important to master this process of thinking. And so I begin to understand what thought is about. What is thought, and how does thought actually affect action? How does it affect feeling? So as we understand it, thoughts become feelings, feelings become actions, and actions become the stuff that we store away as memories because of the things that we've been doing. So there's a direct correlation between the thought being the seed of my feelings, of my actions, and therefore my creations. So if I can master that seed and nurture it correctly and assure that it's the right type of seeds that I'm planting, then I will have beautiful outcomes. My life will be transformed. If I understand also the basic differences between one type of thought and another type of thought is one is going to represent wholeness, possibility, and also it's going to energize me. It's giving me power. While the other type is going to weaken me, it's going to create limitations, and it's going to cause this sense of fragmentation, not only within myself, but also my environment. and it creates these obstacles. So it's very simple. It may sound complicated in terms of like thought. There's a great world around thought. Yes, there is, but there's very simple things that you can do in order to test the type of and the quality of type that you're experiencing, that you're about to create. And there's always time to actually take the time to assure that the quality of your thinking is accurate. So the first thing to test for is my intention in this thought clean and pure? It's very simple. So before you're actually creating the thought, right? There's aspect of I am creating a vibration. So even before I actually create the thought, I have to take the time to sit, stabilize myself in a certain vibration, the vibration of love, the vibration of compassion. So whatever it is right for that moment, that's where I'm going to sit. I'm going to be in self-respect. I'm going to call upon whatever quality I require in this particular moment, and I am going to color my thoughts with that quality. So my intention is going to be clean and pure. And also another aspect to consider is that I understand this cycle of things, karma. What I give, I will receive. So I ask myself a simple question: is what I'm about to give this individual, this situation, is that what I want to receive? And that will also determine what stage in self-respect, also what's lacking, what is weak within yourself. So pay attention to your answer when it comes to that. Am I willing? Am I willing to receive what I am giving? Am I ready to receive what I am giving? That's very important for us to be in awareness of. So does this increase my spiritual power? That's also very powerful, because if I'm putting all this effort, if I'm creating this space of practice in order to increase my power, when you fall, when you make an error, what happens is that sometimes it takes a lot of energy to actually get yourself back up. Right? So assuring that the thoughts are actually increasing your spiritual power, because it's very simple. This thought is energizing me. It feels good. It feels empowering. It feels like it's creating harmony. It feels like it's cooperative. It's creating a good space, a good environment, internally and externally. So does anybody have any questions regarding this? And there's other classes that one can take in terms of, if you're interested in exploring further in terms of what is the thought, and also how can I become master of the process of thinking. And even understanding further, remember I said there's different layers of peeling away meaning. So even the different types of thoughts. So there's an entire understanding in relationship to thoughts that can be explored, but I'm just simplifying it here so that we can then refer to the sense of self-respect. Any questions? So one of the things that, again, you have tools as you sit in meditation, as you gain knowledge, you begin to put things in perspective, you begin to bring meaning, and you begin to create right action. But any time that you catch yourself in that sense of, in that point of self-awareness, where you see that your thinking is going in the wrong direction, remember, what does self-respect means? It means that I am the master of my system. I am the master of my mind. So I instruct my mind, my conscious mind, of the quality of thoughts it should create. So I am the beginning of the thought process. So I must assure that I'm present, right? I must assure that I am conscious and paying attention to the quality of my thoughts. So anytime that I feel that my mind is misbehaving, I stop the process. It's called stop, check, and change. It's very simple. You stop, You give it just is this a divine thought? Is this based on my virtues? Is this based on my spiritual understanding? And if it's not, then it's missed the test, right? So you have to start from scratch. So I stop and I create a new thought. I create a new thought that is pure in intention, that is founded in virtues. So I stop, I check what's happening, and then I change it. So I now create a new thought that is based on pure intention, divine thinking, that is going to create and cultivate a positive feeling that's going to energize me. It's going to make me joyous. It's going to fill me with full of possibility. It's going to create cooperation around me. And so that whatever it is that I'm trying to achieve gets completed because my environment is supporting me. Right? So stop, check, and change. There are methods that we can learn in order to increase the power of self-respect and are those muscles. So by literally putting those into action, we begin to strengthen our capacity. Does that make sense to everyone? Does anybody have a question? So just to, as our last, very quickly, I want to just, as part of the gift to yourself for this Valentine's, I want to encourage all of you to make a pledge. And the pledge is to make a commitment to release doubt, self-doubt, to release the desire to be right, to release fear, to release this sense of ever thinking that I'm a victim and that there's somebody else to blame. And letting go, release guilt, anger, resentment for anything of the past. And release the need to fulfill other people's expectations, the need to please others, to be in their favor. And instead, I want you to really create a commitment to make yourself light and easy and flowing within your own truth. By choosing to be in self-respect, I am the master authority of my system. To live out of your universal spiritual truth, that universal spiritual truth that you will, if you haven't yet, you will create a goal to find that, whatever it is, and to live by it. But remember, it must be universal, it must be inclusive of everything and everyone around you. Remain anchored in your virtues and spiritual powers. So if you haven't yet discovered them and you haven't yet uncovered them, make it a goal during this Valentine to show yourself the deep love that is required in order for you to go on this journey of self-discovery, to unravel the jewels of your virtues, to unravel and discover these spiritual powers that are just sleeping inside of you, ready to be utilized to make your life easy, to make your life more joyous. And to always be ready to take responsibility for the cause and effect of everything that you are doing. And to always be ready to create beautiful stories of the difficult times and the easy times, knowing that there's a gem in every situation that brings you benefit and power. And commit to remaining lovingly detached, not because you don't love, not because you don't feel, but lovingly detached because you do feel yourself, you feel your truth. And because you know that when you take care of yourself and that you are whole and you are stable, then you can give even more to everyone and everything around you. Right? So take care of your, remain lovingly detached and free of expectations. And most importantly, don't take another soul's thinking, feeling, and actions personally. Let go of any of that. Remain clean and pure. Remain within your own space, within your own universe. Does that make sense to everyone? And I want you to before we go, because I know there's meditation later, I want you to just very briefly, as an exercise you can actually do at home as well. You can think of it as a little bit of homework. After we're off, I would ask you, as a commitment to yourself, I would ask you to create a heart on a piece of paper, and I want you to commit to doing these things, but also just for tonight, I want you to think of a situation where you have expressed or created something that's expressing doubt, desire to be right, or fear, or that sense of victim, or that sense of I'm trying to fulfill somebody else's expectation. And I want you to take you that situation and I want you to say, I release you. I release you, and put it into a perspective that actually shows that you're sitting in your self-respect, you're thinking of universal spiritual truth, and that you're remaining anchored in your virtues. Okay, so as an experience, I want to, first of all, before we close, does anybody else have any questions or anything that they would like to add?
Yeah, can you send this? It was wonderful presentation. Is that possible? We can review that on.
Yes, I believe that it's actually recorded, so you can ask for the recording actually.
Oh
So
yeah.
just send if you're interested in a recording of the session, please just contact the BK Center, the LA BK Center, and they will be very happy to send you a link to it or identify, how to best get it to you.
Yeah.
Because it's nice to hear again.
In the
You
chat
cannot.
it is there. Yeah.
You cannot share it on the
Okay.
Brahma Kumari.
I'll just want to, first of all, Brother Santi, I wanted to thank you for this evening's presentation. Thanking you for your wisdom and all this knowledge that you have shared, and the fact that it's good for us to know that we need to make time to feel our truth and to be in our truth, and to make space for ourselves to remain and in that sincerity of the self. Now, we are coming to we have come to a closure, and the meditation is beginning. But if you look at the chat, there is a link to the YouTube channel. You can go to that YouTube channel or copy that link. You will know those are all the uploaded programs that are there from the previous talks. And you can also find Brother Santi's previous presentations too in there. But also, as soon as we upload it, if you subscribe, then you will get notification that this has been uploaded, and then you can go and access that particular talk. Every talk will have its own notification once it gets uploaded. So and also feel free to visit, bklosangeles.org, which is the website. for the Los Angeles Brahma Kumaris, bklosangeles.org. And what
can I just say something? And for those who are not in LA, I know some of you might be in New York. So for those who are in New York, feel free to also reach out to the Brahma Kumaris Meditation Center on Fifth Avenue, or whatever's closest to you.
Exactly, because nowadays we're using Zoom and we're calling from all over, the country and even the world. So even if you go to the Brahma Kumaris USA, then you can see the locations, the centers near you. But at this point with Zoom, with the world of Zoom and our digital communications, you can always join any of the activities and talks and workshops and exercises and meditations anywhere. Just don't overload yourself, pick and choose. But in BK Los Angeles too, there is the calendar and you can go and see what's happening. Now, it's noteworthy for you to know, we have our beautiful and powerful and wonderful sister and speaker who will be speaking from Los Angeles platform. That is BK Shivani, and she will be speaking on 13th of March. The topic is, Shivratri, which is discovering, the benevolence of the benevolent truth of God. And it's a beautiful topic. It's a beautiful celebration, on the Shivratri. And she will be speaking, and it will be at 6 o'clock. So we're not going to have meditation on the 13th, the way we usually have here. We're going to be giving the time because she's going to be speaking with us from India. So we have to adjust our timing